Hi everyone, welcome to the Jamstack Incubation Engineering Update. I'm Yanis. Let's talk about what happened since the last update. I've been trying to get these two MRs merged that will introduce the pipeline wizard to pages. They're all just sitting there and moving very slowly through the review cycle. Since I need all of the backend, front-end, and documentation reviews, the review cycle moves very, very slowly. We just need a little more patience, and I hope this will be merged soon anyway. Now for the actually exciting update. I've been working on my API generator in the meantime. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my last video where I'll explain the larger idea. Okay, so I started first with generating a prototype API that does two things. A, it's a GraphQL API, and B, it runs on Cloudflare workers. As a database, it will at some point use Cloudflare's new D1. I don't have a lot of information yet on how that D1 interface is going to look like, and they're understandably quiet about it, but from what I gather from Cloudflare's one single blog post about it, I'm assuming that the interface will likely be similar to the SQLite 3 package for Node.js. So what I did for the time being is I created a mock D1 object that exposes an API I assume to be similar to what D1 is going to offer. This for now is routing the requests to a local SQLite instance, so I can go ahead and develop my app and hopefully switch to a D1 instance once Cloudflare releases their first beta of it. Now, with that D1 object mocked, I also needed to ensure that the libraries I use for the API don't rely on Node.js core modules that can't easily be polyfilled. The app will ultimately run on a Cloudflare worker, which is not a Node.js environment, but closer to a browser. Lucky for me, this also means I can actually use ECMA script 2022, so that's really nice. Now for the app, I've decided to use Knex as a SQL ORM on top of SQLite. I'm hoping this will make it easier to auto-generate code pieces and database migrations. It should also make it easier for users that at some point would like to start manually maintaining the generated API and maybe switch to a different database engine while doing so. I don't have a ton of experience with Knex at the moment, but I'm learning as I go along. Also for Knex, I couldn't directly use the SQLite dialect because that requires direct access to the SQLite process with transactions and connections, connection management. All these things are already abstracted when using D1, I assume. So what I did is I wrote the D1 dialect as a package, which is an extension on the SQLite dialect that takes care of the slightly different connection interface. It'll ultimately transpile the same way SQLite 3 does, but just the connection management is a bit simpler. Now, with this prototype setup working, I've then started to create an app that will create this prototype. So I've abstracted the prototype app into a Hygen template. Hygen is a JavaScript-based code generator, which makes a lot of sense to use when generating JavaScript apps. So with the prototype transformed into a template, I can now run this command Hygen init repo, and it will generate a basic application structure with no models in it yet. Now I can go and add a model with Hygen model new, let's call it Pokemon, and it will generate a new Pokemon data source and inject it. Now I have this completely auto-generated app with just 2 commands. Let's go and test it. I can now cd into the generated app and run wrangler2 dev and use the local flag so that it runs locally. And look, it generates a server, and if we open the GraphQL endpoint, we can get the playground that will actually ship with every app. And in here we can run this query. See? I actually can't remember a lot from Pokemon, but I think Pikachu wasn't the first one. Anyway, you just saw a completely auto-generated GraphQL API that runs on a Cloudflare worker. Right now, the app can only do the read function. The next steps are to add full CRUD support. And this generator actually lives in a repo if you want to follow its development. It's linked below the video. But beware, it's under heavy development, and so no docs, lots of bugs and dead ends. Ultimately, I'd love to release this as a package, but that's still miles out. If you have any feedback, do let me know. Send me an issue, ping me on Slack, anything. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this week's update. I hope to see you next time. Bye.